the disciples are beginning to witness, they're beginning to see Jesus heal people, even raise people from the dead, doing all these miraculous things, and now they're getting to see him speak to nature, which is to them, wait a minute, and they kind of start questioning for a moment of what's going on, and so we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to read from Luke chapter 8. Luke chapter 8, verse 22. Luke 8, chapter 8 of Luke, verse 22. Jesus calming the storm. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into the boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake so that the boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided and all was calm. "Where is your faith?" he asked his disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, "Who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him." So it's not just another miracle. This is something totally different, if you will. It's something out of the norm, and he's speaking to nature. And he is... He's trying to teach them who he is. Remember, he doesn't want them to just see him as a prophet or as a good teacher. He's trying to teach them, I am God. I'm God in flesh. I am the Messiah. I am the one that the prophets talked about. I am he. And so all of these miracles prove that he is who he says he is. And so all of his 3.5 years of ministry is about proving who he is, but also proving that God the Father had sent him. And so here he is. And so here's a couple things if you're taking notes from your book, if you all that are home, or maybe you're not here to have your book with your tablet with you, maybe you can take those at home if you want to. And here is lesson number 1. With Jesus, the storm will not overtake you. Storms come. Storms are always either short, some are short, some are long. Now, I kind of hear the disciples a little bit. I connect a little bit of the story because I'm one who loved to be out on the lake. And if you've ever been out on the lake very much, a storm seems to come up real quick on a lake. And when the storm is coming, when the rains come and sometimes there's fog and there's other things, on a lake you can really get disoriented. You really don't know. You think you know where you're at, but you're not. And so I can understand the disciples going, what in the world? We don't know where we're at. We don't know what's all we know is that there's this wind. The waters are raging. We're in trouble. About 2 years ago, I was on vacation with my brother. We go on our fishing trip every year. And that morning it was they said it was probably going to rain, but no storm. So my brother and I said, hey, jump my boat and let's go down. My boat's pretty fast. Maybe we can outrun a storm if we need to, but let's get a few hours of fishing in. So we decided to go out, and we went quite a ways down the river, and all of a sudden it started raining. Now, it just didn't start raining. I mean, it was raining so hard that it was literally about hurting you. And when it rained. And so I said, well, Philip, maybe we need to go back to the camp because we were just getting soaked. And so we took off, and I'm watching a depth finder on my console at my steering wheel. I have a depth finder that tells me where it's at. Well, in the lake that we're at, Lake Barkley, you can go out in the middle of the lake and you think, man, it is deep. It's a huge lake. But if you don't know where you're going, there's sandbars out there. So in the middle of the lake, it might only be 3 or 4 feet deep, even during the summer. And so I'm aware of that. So we go, and I'm thinking I'm staying within the river banks because it's really deep. I have no problem. And I look at my depth finder, and I look, and it says 5 feet deep. Oh, I know where I'm at now. We're about to be in trouble if I don't watch what we're doing. And so we got out of there. But when a storm comes up on the lake, you're disoriented. You think you know where you're at, and you don't. And so you can understand these disciples, they're disoriented. It's raining. The wind is blowing. The water is rough. It's coming in the boat. And truly they are scared. And so they want to wake Jesus up. But what they had failed to realize, and why Jesus questions their faith, Jesus is right there with them. Why do they think they're going to die? Why do they think they're going to be? Jesus is right there. So storms are going to come. Right? We're going to have storms that are going to come. The old saying is, you're either going into a storm, you're in the middle of a storm, or you're going out of one. And that's kind of what you feel like life is. If you hadn't been in a storm for a while, just wait. You're probably about to go into one. Just hang on. And so we get into these storms, they come, the storms of life, and we don't know what to do, and we don't know where to go, and we don't know how we're going to make it. But if we'll remember, just like the disciples, what Jesus was teaching them is that Jesus is with us in the storm. He's with us. In fact, we're living in a storm. Our world is in constant turmoil. Wars, rumors of war. 2020 was a very difficult year as a whole on many people. We know it went beyond even a virus that is still here. It was very difficult for many, many people, and lives changed, and our nation changed. Things happened. And then when you read Timothy, Paul tells a young Timothy, a young pastor, even in his day, and he says this, but mark this. There'll be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to the parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. And he goes on and he talks about other people. We're living in that kind of world when all these things are going to happen. People are going to be ruthless. People are going to be mad. They're going to be angry. They're going to be hurt. There's all kinds of things happening in our world, and they create turmoil. But what we have to realize that if Jesus is with us in the storm, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it. It may not be fun. It may not be easy. In the middle of a storm, it's not easy. It's not fun. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes the storm will push you to your limit. But if you remember, Jesus is with me, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We'll make it. Jesus told his disciples, this recorded in John, in this world you will have trouble, but fear not, I have overcome the world. The world's full of trouble. But he says, you don't have to fear. It's going to be okay. I have overcome that world. He's saying, I've overcome that trouble. I've overcome all of that you're going to come against. All that's going to try to destroy you, I have overcome that. I am with you. And I'll be with you. So Jesus is with us in the storm. And if he's with us in the storm, that storm will not overtake us. It will not overtake us. It doesn't mean that we won't be in one. It just means it will not overtake. If you're going through a storm right now, just know Jesus is with you. He won't let it overtake you. It doesn't mean it's not going to be easy, but he is with you. Second lesson we learn from this is Jesus has power over the storms. Luke said that he rebuked it, and the winds and waves began to be quiet. His wording is quite interesting, the word rebuke, because it seems like Luke is kind of looking at it in a sense from that maybe the storm was sent to intimidate and scare. And our adversary does that, our enemy, the devil. He wants us to fix our eyes on the storm. And all he has to do for us as Christians is just to get us to focus our eyes somewhere else other than on Jesus, who can speak to the storm, who is there with us. And it's easy to get your eyes on the storm because it's going on around you, and it's hard not to take your eyes off of it because the storm seems to be in your face, and you're disoriented, and you're frustrated, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know what life holds from this point on. In fact, we kind of understand this a little bit. We're in the horse racing capital. In horse racing, a lot of times you will see that they will put blinders on the horses so that the horses won't see to their left or to the right, that they will keep them focused. You and I are the same way. Scripture tells us what? To fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our salvation. So even in the middle of the storm, when I'm seeing all the things that are going on around me and it doesn't make sense, and we're looking at things that are coming against us that might harm us or might destroy us, we're told to keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't worry about the storm. The storm may have been sent to just intimidate you, to scare you, to bother you, to see if he can rattle your faith a little bit. But Jesus says, I'm right here. Just focus on me. Just focus on me. And sometimes as Christians, we forget about that because we're bombarded with all kinds of things. We live in a world, especially in America, we become so focused on politics that politics has almost become like a god to us instead of keeping our eyes focused on Jesus. Because what really matters is what he is doing. What really matters is what Jesus is doing. That he's about to call his people home, and we've got to get ready, and we've got to get other people ready. He is the author and finisher of our faith, and storms will not overpower us. Jesus speaks to the storm, and it subsides at his command. He's now showing that he has power over nature. The Creator is speaking to creation, and it has to listen. He is the Creator. In the midst of the storm, I can be calmed. What makes us different than the world, what sets us apart, it's not that we don't face the same storms as the world does. What makes us different is how we handle the storm. The world wants to run away from the storm. The world sometimes wants to be done with the storm and leave. We don't do that. We say we know God is here. We look at where God's at. What is he doing? Where is he focused? How is he ministering? Did you know in Texas right now, all the things are going on? Ron and I have personal friends that are being affected by that, by a lot of that's going on down there. And so many were without power. And here's Convoy of Hope. Ready to go. Man, they had their trucks ready, filled. Teenagers in the Assemblies of God raised money to buy some of those big 18-wheeler trucks, filled it full of water and food, and they were headed off as soon as there was emergency. In fact, you can give to convoyofhope.com if you want to, or you can give it to the church and we'll make sure it gets there. But Convoy of Hope was ready. Now, what's going to happen with Convoy of Hope? There's people that are going to share the gospel of Jesus. Great things can come out of a storm. Difficult storms can bring on a great faith. And so people's lives will be affected during this time for the good, not just for the difficulty that it's going to be to rebuild. We often look at the rebuilding, but some people's lives are going to be changed forever for the good because they're going to see God moving in their midst. God brings great things out of a storm. And you can always look and see, where was God? People always want to know that. But then you begin to look and say, God was there. God was there in 9/11. There should have been 25 to 30,000 people killed on that day, and there was 3,000. 3,000 was too many. A little more than 3,000. But they could have been a whole lot more. And you hear stories of things that were odd things that were happening that morning. That God protected so many people. God is always in the middle of the storm if we'll just keep our eyes on Him. He has power over the storm, and He can speak to the storms if He so desires. Storms can be sent for our advantage even. God's Word calls them trials and tests. In fact, we're told to count it all joy when trials and temptations come your way. That's a hard thing. That messes with our theology, right? Yes, I'm going through a trial. Bring it on. Woo, I'm being tempted. Bring it on. That just messes with us. But they counted it all joy. They said, listen, because we know that we're following Jesus when these things happen. But we also know that there's someone who has overcome these things. And if He overcame them, I can overcome them as well. No temptation can destroy me. No trial can destroy me. I may go through it. I may have to deal with it. But there's one who will keep me. Paul went through many trials. You know, most of us pray, Lord, I want Paul's faith. But do you really? Because he was shipwrecked many a times. He was left for dead many times. He went without food many a times. That's why his faith was so strong. He kept going through trials, and he began to realize, wait a minute, these trials and all these things that God is bringing my way, they're coming my way, yet I will serve the Lord. And his faith began to be stronger and stronger, and he could preach even greater because of what he had went through. Going through a trial is not always the horrible thing that we think it is. Sometimes God allows it so that He can build our faith, so that we can learn to trust Him. Because He works all things out for my good. And then look what happened. Here's another lesson, the third lesson. Fear and amazement gripped the disciples. You ever watched a superhero movie? I'm sure you have. Avengers or something like that. You know, when one of these superheroes uses this incredible power, it scares a lot of people. Wait a minute, what is this? We don't want this person there until they realize that if it's a good power, right? If it's a good person, then we like their power. And here's Jesus exercising something that, like, wait a minute. Speaking to a person and healing them is one thing. Speaking to nature, and they go, who is this? Who is this? That He can speak to that. He can speak to the winds and the waves, and they obey. This is crazy. There's something. What? And it scared. It says they were in fear and amazement. All of a sudden, what is up? Who is this? See, only God of creation has the power to speak to it like that. Only He can give the power to speak to it. So all of a sudden, maybe they're beginning to realize, He's much more than a teacher. He's much more than a prophet. Could this be the Son of God as He claims He is? It begins to, wait a minute, if this is the Son of God that we're following, if this is the Son of God that is with us, this is going to take on a whole different meaning. This is going to take on a whole nother level of following Him. You see, if you see Him as a teacher, you can follow from a distance and you can hear His teaching, but it may not affect you. If you follow Him as a prophet, you know, man, that's cool. I like what that prophet does. He can heal. He can do great things. And I want to be a part of it, and I want to watch the show. Wait a minute. If He is the Son of the living God, if He really is God, I got some thinking to do. And I think this is why Jesus told His disciples and told people when to follow. You know, you need to go and calculate the cost of following me. Because following me, not just a teacher, now they're maybe starting to get a grasp. Wait a minute. Could this really be God? Is he really the Son of God? So they're recognizing that he's much more than that. In fact, every religion attempts to answer who Jesus is. There's a lot of them. Most religions will not tell you Jesus wasn't here. They'll say, well, he was here, but he was a good prophet. He was a good teacher. And he had a great love story. But you know what? He wasn't really the one that died on the cross for our sins. He wasn't the one. He didn't come back from the grave. A lot of religions try to tell who Jesus is. And so every generation, every group, every culture, wherever you're from, we're all on this level ground, and we all have the same question that we have to answer. Who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? Is he the one? He's just a prophet, he's just a good teacher? Or is he really the Son of God? Because if he's the Son of God, maybe I owe him my life. Maybe I owe all of it because of what he did for me. He didn't just die as a good teacher. He died as the Son of God. And he rose from the grave as the Son of God, victorious. And so they began to answer, they began to talk about it, they began to wonder. And Jesus just simply tells them, where is your faith? He could have said that many different ways. Do you still not believe? Do you still not understand who I am? That if the Son of God is walking with you, if the Son of God is really with you, if he is God with us, as we talk about at Christmas, Emmanuel is his name, God with, if he's really that, then why are we afraid of the storms? Why do we get so rattled when the storms come instead of saying, no, God is with me. And if he is with me, I can withstand the storm. And if he so chooses to let that storm take me from this life, I'm with him. And so we just have to realize he is with us. The storm has no power over us that he doesn't allow. So storms happen. As we said earlier, you're entering one, or you're in the middle of one, or you're coming out of one. Jesus used the storm for the benefit of them, for their faith, and he calms that storm. Storms will not overtake you. It's easy to lose faith in the storm if we're not careful. And that's why Jesus asked them, where's your faith? Do you believe in me? Do you trust me? And even his disciples had trouble with that because it was easy to get their eyes on other things. And we're living in a time, it seems it's hard to get we can easily get our eyes on other things. But here's the thing about what COVID has done that should have taught us, being shut up in our homes, it should have brought things into focus. Right? That it really should have brought more into focus. It should have brought more into focus for the church. Here's what we're all about. Here's what we are to do. I, as a Christian, man, I ought to be talking to my neighbor. I ought to be winning people around the neighborhood. Hey, I ought to be sharing what Jesus has done for me, that I'm going through the same thing you are, yet God is with me. Our faith should bring us things into focus when we see Jesus. Because there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of noise that's happening. A lot of things happening. But I want to tell you, God's bringing it all into focus. And if we're just listening and we're watching And we just realize the storm may come, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because God is there. If you've been watching by Facebook or YouTube this morning, I say those on Facebook, I want you to do something for me. If you need prayer for anything, I want you to write, I want you to put in the comments what your prayer is. If you need someone to pray with you, we're going to pray on Wednesday nights. And we want to pray for you. I will go back and look at all your prayer requests. If you're going through a storm right now, you can just put in there simply, I'm going through a storm. I need God's help. Maybe your faith is real weak and you say, my faith is weaning just a little bit. I don't know. I'm beat up so much. I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do. You can put that. If you're not feeling well, some of you I know stayed home because you're not feeling well. Thank you for doing that. But if you are sick, you can just put that in there. We want to pray with you. And we'll go back and pray for you and believe God's going to help you. If you're really going through a difficult storm and you feel like giving up, please call. I want to pray with you. I want to continue this conversation with you, and I want to get some material into your hand. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. I pray that the Word of God somehow spoke to you this morning. God bless you.